Kyle Wright has a rough start to his 2023 season, but the offense picks him up. And on this Stat of the Day Wednesday, I'm going to tell you why the Braves' 9-hole hitter is elite. All of that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on Twitter at shorts.ball. Also, check out my written work on the Atlanta Braves over at bravestoday.com. Make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. Send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast. If you're new, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. If you're watching this video there, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button to help support the show. And thanks for all your support for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. And really appreciate all those out there who are our everydayers listening in every day. I see you down in the comments section. I really do appreciate all the support. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. We're going to start today with Tuesday's game where the Braves did end up winning a 7-6. Kyle Wright, rough debut, but the offense picked him up. And then we're going to start our Wednesday segment, which is the stat of the day. And I'm going to tell you why the 9-hole hitter for the Atlanta Braves is elite. Doesn't matter who's there, but whoever is there, they are an elite hitter. But let's start with Tuesday's game. And let's start with the offense. We'll get into Kyle Wright's start here more in a moment. But I really want to talk about the offense and a couple of guys who I mentioned yesterday that have been struggling out of the gate and really need to get going. And that's Ozzie Albies and Marcell Ozuna. Now, not the biggest of games overall for them, but we did see Ozzie time up a fastball, which is one thing that I mentioned that, the timing seemed off. He wasn't able to get on fastballs here early in this season. I actually wrote a companion article to that over at bravestoday.com. You want to go check that out, where I dove a little bit deeper in exactly what is plaguing Ozzie early on in the season. But he had a big 2-run homer to tie up the game at 4. So that is certainly great to see for Ozzie, and hopefully he can continue to get things going. Marcell Ozuna only had 1 hit, but all 4 balls that he put in play were hard hit balls. So that is encouraging. He scored from first on a double. Again, I've talked a lot about he doesn't give you anything outside of home runs, but I'm not going to say he showed you speed here, but to be able to score from first on a double in the gap, certainly it was good to see for Ozuna. So both of those guys contributing. Rosario had 2 hits as well. That was great to see. Sam Hilliard at the bottom of the order. Again, going to talk about that more in a second. He had 2 hits, a couple of doubles, and everybody except Murphy had a hit in this game, and Murphy walked twice. And all those players I just mentioned, and I think this is very key, those are all players not named Ronald Acuna Jr., Matt Olson, and Austin Riley. And when you get this whole lineup clicking for top to bottom, or even when you're just getting a guy or two contributing outside of the top 3, this offense is going to do what it did on Tuesday night, and it's going to score a lot of runs. Now, those guys at the top got it done as well, like they have been all year long. But, it's great to see some of the others contributing as well. And that's what really makes this offense so dangerous, is that you have those guys at the bottom who are capable of contributing. They just haven't been doing it a lot lately. But I mentioned Acuna, Olson, Riley, those 3 combined for 4 hits and 2 walks, 19 hard hit balls overall by this team. Over the last stretch of games here, they haven't even been putting up double-digit hard hit balls. So to see them get to almost 20, again, great to see that from up and down the lineup. That's what we have come to expect from this lineup, and what I think we should expect pretty much all season long is a lot of hard contact up and down this entire lineup. Only 6 strikeouts was great to see, 11 hits and 6 walks. So all around, just a great offensive performance up and down the lineup. Again, what we really expect to see and should see going forward for this Braves offense. Yeah, they're going to have times where they hit some ruts, But again, more often than not, I think this lineup is going to come through during the season. Now, Matt Olson started the scoring for the Braves with a solo home run. A ball hit 118.6 miles per hour. It was the hardest hit ball in the majors so far this season. It's the hardest hit ball by a Braves player since they started tracking this in 2015. So just a ball that was absolutely destroyed from Matt Olson, who's done a lot of that here lately to start the season. And again, hopefully that is a trend that continues for the first baseman as he's off to a really good start for the Atlanta Braves. Who wasn't off to a really good start in 2023 is Kyle Wright, unfortunately. And, kind of got through the first 2 innings just fine, looking like Kyle Wright, but things really got away from him in that 3rd inning. Gave up the leadoff single to India and then a chopper that bounced over the first baseman for a double, 2nd and 3rd. Nobody out. Then you got the walks, the hit batters, and then had 2 strikeouts, and it looked like he was going to get out of it and just continue on in his evening and perhaps get on track. And then you had that infield hit where the Braves were shifting on the right-handed batter. So you had Ozzie playing more up the middle. If he's playing traditional second base position, that's an easy ground ball out that ends the inning. But as it was, they were shifted over. So Ozzie has to range that ball, gets to it, but runner was just too fast, couldn't make it out there. Runner comes around from second to score as well, and the Reds take a 3-1 lead. Kyle Wright walks a couple more batters before he finally gets out of the inning, giving up 4 runs. So that one just really got away from him. Probably a product of some rust, for sure, but it was so close to getting out of that. And you just wonder if Ozzie's able to make that play or if they're not shifted there and you get out of that just giving up the 1 run. Does he get in a groove? Does he go back out there, pitch a couple of more innings? But was not the case and clearly was not the Kyle Wright we saw last year, but he will get there. I think ideally, and I said this on the postcast with Grant McCauley, which you can listen to in the Locked On Braves podcast feed or go watch over at Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube. But I said, ideally, I think Dylan Dodd and or Jared Schuster would have pitched better out of the gate, and you could have allowed Kyle Wright to throw another rehab start, at least one more. I think he probably needed at least one more. He did go 6 innings in his rehab start at Gwinnett, but still struggled a little bit in that one. I think he probably would have benefited from having at least one more rehab start, but because Dodd and Schuster, particularly Schuster, who more likely would have been lined up for this, just weren't getting it done. I think the Braves felt like they needed to go to Kyle Wright, but again, I think in a perfect world, you would have gotten him another rehab start before bringing him back up because he clearly still has some rust to knock off to get geared up for the season. But he will get there. I have no real concerns long-term this season for Kyle Wright. Again, he was so close to getting out of that inning, just allowing the 1 run. He only gave up 2 hard hit balls. It's not like, they were drilling baseballs off of him. It was really just a lack of command in the walks, hit batter, and a couple of bad hops that didn't go his way and some batted ball luck that didn't go his way. So he'll settle in, he'll get better, and he'll be a big part of this rotation going forward. Now, we got to talk about Michael Tonkin, a guy who was out of options coming into spring training. So you felt like there was a chance he was going to make this roster. And he did. And man, he has been absolutely huge for the Atlanta Braves, especially on this night where Kyle Wright's only able to go 3 innings. The bullpen's already been taxed and it's shorthanded. You really needed somebody to step up out there and give the Braves some innings. Not only did Michael Tonkin give the Braves 3 shutout innings, he kept them in that game and allowed the offense to come back, to tie it up, and eventually take the lead. Just can't tell you how huge of an outing that is for Michael Tonkin, perhaps the last guy on the roster out of spring trainings. Just huge innings to cover Wright, to cover the bullpen, to settle things down for that offense. And now you look at the year for Michael Tonkin so far, 8 1/3 innings, just 3 hits allowed, 1 walk, 2 earned runs, and 7 strikeouts. He's not just been good for the Braves. He has been great. And look, he was great at AAA last year. It's a little surprising he didn't get a shot last season. So, this is a guy, he's a veteran. It's not like he's a young guy coming up. He has big league experience. It's been a while for him, but this guy was really good at AAA last year for Gwinnett. He's coming on and throwing some big innings early in the season for the Atlanta Braves, but none bigger than the 3 he threw on Tuesday night to help settle things down in that game. Now we got to talk about the problem in the bullpen, and that is Joe Jimenez. It just is not there. He is not a guy that you can trust right now, and I really hate it because the Braves gave up a really solid prospect in Justin Henry Malloy for Joe Jimenez, and Henry Malloy may become nothing. I don't know, but I talked about it when that trade happened. That was a lot to give up for 1 year of Joe Jimenez, who really had one good season with Detroit. Now, Jimenez was slow coming into spring training. Perhaps he's still a little rusty and maybe he'll get his feet under him and get going, get that velocity back up. But they traded for this guy to be one of their setup pieces right there with Minter. And he's the last man in the bullpen right now that I trust. I mean, it's a 3-run game when he comes in and he leaves, and it's a 1-run game. I mean, you just cannot trust him right now in any kind of high leverage situation. And I get why Snitker's going to him. The bullpen's shorthanded. Minter's unavailable at this point, but he's just not a guy that you can trust in a 3-run game at the moment. But unfortunately, Dylan Lee was able to come in and bail him out. And then Nick Anderson, again, like Tonkin, one of the last guys to get in, although I think Anderson deserved it out of spring training. He just didn't get in because he had options, but he does ultimately get on because of the injuries. And he is one of the better arms in the bullpen right now, one of the more trusted arms. He gets the save and closes the door with Minter unavailable. So mostly great job by the bullpen outside of Jimenez. Jesse Chavez comes in and did what he typically does for the Braves. So love that the offense picked the pitching up in this one, the starting pitching in general, and love that the bullpen, for the most part, outside of Joe Jimenez, really locked things down for the Braves to get this win and secure this series. They go for the sweep on Wednesday, which we'll talk about later in the episode. But next, I want to give you our stat of the day and tell you why the 9-hole hitter for the Braves is an elite hitter. No matter who's there, they have been elite for the Braves. We'll talk about that next. Grand slams, no hitters, and double plays are back, and there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. You want to go out there and place a bet on the number of strikeouts Spencer Strider's going to have on Wednesday, you can do that. Don't miss your chance to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Please also make sure that you bet responsibly, and if you need help, make sure that you reach out. FanDuel has a place for that as well. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, I mentioned me and Grant McCauley have the postcast over on Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed there. They got a lot of great content for all you Atlanta sports fans. I know the Hawks had a big win on Tuesday night as well as they get into the playoffs. A lot of Falcon stuff going on. I think they made a trade the other day as well for a cornerback. So you want to hear about all that, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta as well as Locked On Falcons and Locked On Hawks as well. All right. I want to start a new segment here on Wednesday. Started a segment on Tuesday, the Taco Tuesday, talking about the biggest things going on in Braves country right now, the biggest talk about the Braves right now. On Wednesday, we're going to have our stat of the day. So for today's stat of the day, the 9th-place hitter for the Atlanta Braves this year is batting .400 with a 1016 OPS in 12 games. I mentioned this on the postcast yesterday, and after I saw that, I just had to go in and do a little bit more digging because that is unreal for your 9th-place hitter. And let's take a step back and take a moment and think of what the 9th-place hitter used to be for the Braves, for National League baseball teams. Look, I was against the designated hitter coming to the National League. I like the old style of baseball and the strategy that came with, not having the DH in the game. And I think it's a little boring, and I think it makes your bench players useless. But it is here. And the Braves have benefited tremendously from not having the hitter in the 9th spot. Not only are they tops in those stats this year, they were tops in those stats last year as well. You look back at last year for the Braves, the 9-hole hitter led all of baseball for 9-hole hitters with a 269 average, 789 OPS, 469 slugging, and 26 home runs. That was the production the Braves got from the 9-hole last year. And they're doing it again this season as well. 18 hits from the 9 spot is 4 more than any other team so far this year. And, helped last year. Obviously, they had Michael Harris and Vaughn Grissom batting in that spot a lot, who are two really good hitters. But I think a big factor in all of this is you're essentially batting in front of Ronald Acuna Jr. And pitchers know that. And pitchers know they have to attack that 9-hole hitter, because you let them on base and you got Acuna coming up with a runner on. So those 9-hole hitters, they're getting fastballs. They're getting 2-0 fastballs. If you can work a count into your favor in the 9-hole, you're going to get a fastball. And so I think that plays a huge role in why the 9-hole hitter has been so effective for the Braves. They've also had really good players in that 9-hole spot. You look at Orlando Arcia this year, when he's been batting ninth, he's slashing 391, 440, 609 in 6 games. Let me read that to you again. Orlando Arcia, when batting ninth this season, he's hitting 391, 440 on base percentage, and a 609 slugging percentage. Sam Hilliard, 15 at bats from the 9-hole spot this year. He's hitting 400. And then you look at Pilar, Rosario, and White. They're all combined 3 for 7 in that spot. Doesn't really matter who you're putting there for the Atlanta Braves. They're getting it done, and that has become a huge benefit for the Braves, not having that pitcher spot there and being able to put somebody there that's going to get on base for Acuna, Olsen, and Riley at the top of that order. It is something that has greatly benefited the Braves. It's a great low leverage spot, and it's great protection in the lineup. Like I said, with Acuna, with Olsen, with Riley batting behind that 9-hole spot, I just think it's a great place to put a hitter who can get on base. That's why I was all for Vaughn Grissom before we knew Orlando Arcia was going to come and take this shortstop job. I thought it would be a great spot for Grissom. Just put him down there with his speed and let him get on base in front of those guys. I even kind of somewhat jokingly hinted at it yesterday that maybe you put Ozzie Albies in that 9th spot and allow him to get going and, see if he can get some better pitches and get going in that 9 spot, as everybody seemingly does. And then you get him on base with his speed in front of Acuna, Olsen, and Riley. It just doesn't really seem to matter who the Braves have put there. They have had a ton of success, and it's been a huge benefit for the Braves with that DH coming into play to be able to put that guy at the bottom of the order and allow them to flip it for the top of the order. Again, it's just amazing right now when you look at the numbers for the Braves a year and 12 games into this season now, what that 9 spot has done for this offense and how it has really fed the top of the order. So hopefully that's something that continues. And maybe it's something we look at if a player is struggling, you put them down in that 9-hole to see if that can get them going. Hey, who knows? Maybe put Marcell Ozuna down there and see if he can go on a hot streak. But that's not the typical type of player I want to see in that 9-hole. I do want to see somebody down there with a little bit of speed that can get on base, in front of those guys at the top. But either way, the Braves 9-hole hitter is elite. It doesn't really seem to matter who it is, but whoever they put in that spot, they are elite, an elite hitter. So that is our stat of the day Wednesday. I'll bring that to you every Wednesday. Sometimes we'll dive into the analytics. Sometimes it'll just be an eye-popping stat like this one was, but that'll be our Wednesday segment for the regular season. So hopefully you enjoy that, and we'll do that, like I said, throughout the regular season. All right, next, got a little bit of news, some unfortunate news for Ian Anderson that we'll discuss, and then I'll set you up for Wednesday's game where we got a couple of flamethrowers on the mound in Hunter Greene and Spencer Strider. We'll talk about that next. Everyone is always looking for a great fantasy baseball game to see how they would do as the GM of a baseball team. And if you are one of those people, I have just the app you're looking for. Ultimate Pro Baseball GM is a mobile game that lets you manage your own professional baseball franchise to try and build and win a World Series. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the season, and lead your team to glory. You're responsible for hiring the right coaches and staff, managing team finances, scouting and drafting players, managing difficult personalities, navigating your franchise through free agency, all the ups and downs of a season. You want to live that out. You want to live out your dream as a GM. Then you got to check out Ultimate Pro Baseball GM. And Locked On Braves listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up in the app stores. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. We will have a mailbag podcast coming up this week. We'll have an off day on Thursday. So be thinking about those questions and getting ready to submit those in. I'll send out a tweet from the main LockedOn_Braves Twitter feed looking for those questions. So again, be on the lookout for that. We'll have a mailbag episode coming up on Friday. We did have some unfortunate news on Tuesday as Ian Anderson is going to have a Tommy John surgery coming out of his last start, felt something in his elbow. And it's looking like it is going to be the UCL. So he's going to have Tommy John surgery, which means he'll miss all the rest of this year and most of next year. Perhaps we see him back towards the end of next season. But pretty much this season and next year are going to be a wash for Ian Anderson as he rehabilitates that elbow. But hopefully this becomes somewhat of a reset for Ian Anderson, who has had a difficult year plus now. Things have not been going well for him. Hopefully this can be a good thing. This can be a reset and he comes back stronger, healthier, and looking like the Ian Anderson that we saw in his first couple of years in the big leagues. But prayers, well wishes for Ian. Certainly hate to see him have to go through that. But again, hopefully in the long run, it's a good thing for him. On Wednesday, the Braves are going to go for a sweep over the Cincinnati Reds, and it is going to be a pitching matchup you do not want to miss, especially if you like high velocity, dominant type stuff from your starting pitchers. Spencer Strider versus Hunter Greene. Now, Hunter Greene, probably the more notable prospect, taken early in the draft by the Reds, hasn't quite had the success Spencer Strider has had to this point. But again, big time stuff. It's coming for him eventually. But so far this year, 8 innings pitched in 2 games started and is yet to complete 5 innings so far this year. 10 hits, 6 walks, 5 earned run, 1 home run, but 13 strikeouts in 8 innings. So again, big time stuff. He's going to get his strikeouts. Like I said, hasn't made it through 5 innings so far this year. Does strike out a lot, but has walked 3 in each of his first 2 starts as well. So throws a lot of pitches, can lose his command at times. So Braves hitters got to be patient. I know that can be difficult for them sometimes, but they have done a pretty good job of taking their walks this year. Hunter Greene actually faced the Braves last year in his MLB debut, as you might remember, in April. I believe it was April 10th last year. 5 innings, 4 hits, 2 walks, 3 earned, 2 home runs, and 7 strikeouts in that outing. So again, take the over on strikeouts in this one. I think there's going to be a lot of them. Hunter Greene's average fastball velocity this year, 99.9 miles per hour. You're going to see a lot of triple digits from Hunter Greene in this one. And like Spencer Strider, he is primarily a fastball slider pitcher. Now, his slider is not nearly as dominant a pitch as Spencer Strider's is, but that fastball is very good and does come in really hard. So going to be a lot of fun. As for Strider, 11 innings pitched this year in 2 starts, just 7 hits allowed, but 6 walks for Spencer in those 11 innings. His command's been a little up and down early on in the season as well. 3 earned runs, all coming on a 3-run homer given up to Matt Carpenter in that Padres game. 18 strikeouts for Spencer Strider, though, in those 11 innings. His average fastball this year is 97.2 miles per hour, which is actually a mile per hour slower than his average last year. Now, one thing I've noticed with Strider is that it seems like he's more 96, 97 early in counts and then really reaching back for that 98, 99 when he needs it, which I think is smart. And again, he's carrying this velocity late into his outings as well. So there's no real concern for me that average fastball velocity is down. I think he's being a smarter pitcher and kind of saving that for when he needs it. Now, his slider has been nearly unhittable so far this year. 57.7% whiff rate on Spencer Strider's slider in his first 2 starts. So going to be a lot of strikeouts in this one. Again, take the over. I think you're going to see a lot of swings and misses in Wednesday's game. But hopefully the Braves do come out on top and get the sweep. Hopefully Strider's able to put it all together in this start. Thrown a lot of pitches in his first 2 starts. Those 6 walks, that's something I'm sure he certainly would like to improve upon, see him get deeper into the game. Maybe we see a pitcher complete 7 innings. That would certainly be a welcome sight for a Braves bullpen that has been overworked. But either way, should be a fun one on Wednesday night. Me and Grant will have the postcast for you after that one, again on the Locked On Braves podcast feed over on Locked On Sports Atlanta as well. That will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thanks for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Thank you all to all the everydayers out there that we have listening, commenting in the comments section. Again, thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. You can follow me at ShortstopBall. Also, make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.